Informative.
It is now investigating the events that unfolded at Swakopmund Secondary School on Wednesday last week.
Accurate.
It's the job of now journalists and everyone to say, are the factors affecting meat cooperation, are they internal?
Entertaining.
Well, the Salibos Madam is just me. I don't know how to introduce myself.
Current.
Breaking news. As we know, the police and the City of Beukes private contractors are busy demolishing shacks.
Desert Radio, the bold voice.
It is indeed the bold voice on Desert Radio. A very good afternoon to you and to yours. Thank you so much for making some time for us. 20 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock is the time right now, and this is the conversation. Now, a fourth woman has become the victim of gender-based violence-motivated murder after she was stabbed with a kitchen knife in Grootfontein this week. This follows soon after the protest action in Usakos recently, where a woman died at the hands of her former lover, while another woman died in Windhoek, and then another one died in Marienthal recently as well. Njuba Regional Police spokesperson Senior Inspector Maureen Beha confirmed the death of the yet-to-be-identified married woman at the hands of her 48-year-old husband. Conversations now around tradition, religion and spirituality as failing pillars have been floating around the public domain. And on the conversation this afternoon, we will be unpacking this, and we are joined by the Secretary General of the Council of Churches of Namibia, that's Ludwig Beukes. Artist and spiritualist Hishishi Shikongeni joins us in studio, as well as General Secretary and Board of Directors members of the Windhoek Islamic Center, that's Armas Malik Shikongo, in the studio as well. To you, Pastor Beukes on the line, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for making some time for us this morning. Hishishi Shikongeni joins us in studio. A very good afternoon to you, sir.
Welcome, my brother. Humbleness.
Indeed. And then Abdul Malik Shikongo, doctor, to you, a very good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me.
Indeed. Pastor Beukes, perhaps I'll start with you this afternoon, and briefly, if you can, as introductory remarks. Conversations around the pillars of religion, spirituality, tradition, as failing factors in guiding society and perhaps in being a cause to what we see now as mounting cases of gender-based violence. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, this is actually a very sad news when we hear this kind of events and happenings. Although, as I can say, the message of the church is the message of love. Love in the relationship towards God and love in a relationship towards your fellow human being. That's the core message, actually, of the church. That as we are hearing what is happening, it's also a message to all of us, church included, to say, where are we going wrong?
Dr. Shikongo, perhaps from your side, what does the Quran teach in this regard, in a non-violent manner, in being in a loving relationship where peace prevails regardless of disagreements?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me once again. Let me wish your listeners peace and blessings to everyone. Well, specifically, there is a very interesting verse in the Quran which talks about that the relationship, especially between male and female, since we are talking about gender-related issue, is that it's a complementary union, okay, where, in fact, the key sort of cement between these two is love and mercy, okay? And the verse itself actually says that it is God who put love and mercy between your hearts, so that love and mercy, you have to underline that, love and mercy between your hearts, so that actually you can look after each other. That's a sort of a loose meaning of of that particular Quranic message. Now, what is obviously clear is that you find that in a relationship, if these two are missing, you can already see the opposite. It's hatred and aggressiveness, aggression, So you see that, you see sometimes, you know, in your introduction you've mentioned that it looks like values and religions and spiritualities are failing, which to some extent could be true. But you see, part of the problem with us as human beings is that we tend to not apply things that we believe in. Or either we abuse them or we don't understand them, especially in the case of ignorance, or there's some other circumstances that are also complicating the picture. For example, in Namibia, we know also the high level of substance abuse, you know, which is another element that comes in to complicate things. So that's why sometimes I have not a problem per se, but I'm problematizing the issue of gender-based violence. Because once you reduce it to gender, then you kind of miss the other issues that are actually in the picture. However, because that's how we decided to label the problem, we kind of will discuss it in that way. Because what I'm trying to say is that whenever we want to look at a problem in a very serious way and to find solutions, you have to have a multidimensional perspective. It can't be a reductionistic, as we say in academia. Because when you look at a problem, you have to look obviously at different factors. What is it? Is these things purely because it's a male and female issue, or there are other things that are actually coming through, whether they are religious, cultural, whatever else I'm sure we'll be discussing further.
Indeed.
Yeah, but the main thing, just to answer your question briefly, directly rather, the Quran obviously mentioned even the issue of respecting our mothers. Because the Quran puts the mother at a very high level. That the mother is the one actually who will bore you for 9 months with all kinds of pains. So the woman is seen as someone who is highly respected and to be respected. So there are so many teachings, obviously, if we look at it from an Islamic perspective, there's so many teachings that are emphasizing on the importance of treating women with fairness, with justice, with kindness, with mercy, and all that. So, but definitely, and these are preventive sort of messages.
Indeed.
Because when we apply them, obviously they're supposed to be beneficial. But if we ignore them, naturally, even if they are there, they are not going to be useful. So I think that's how I would respond to your question directly on that one. Yeah.
Indeed. Shikongeni, I'll bring you in here now. When we had the conversation around religion and all of that off air, you spoke about, the African person in particular, having to look at their own values and their own traditions and their own cultures and leaving these Western beliefs that they've adopted. But nonetheless, there has to be a belief system in any case, right? Do those belief systems direct a person in how their behavior or how they should behave? And does that result in the cases that we've seen today?
Yeah, humble greetings to the all Namibians with companions and love. The main thing is that when we speak about gender and when we speak about these beliefs, most of the thing that always we have to think as African people, are we speaking from the perspective of colonialism, when it comes to religions, education, when it comes to politics and democracy? After independence, things have changed. We inherited a culture that have taken our cultural and traditional beliefs away when it comes to discipline. People think that our culture and values are only negativities towards our own self, but it is not, because there was value. These people these children who are killing themselves, are they going through initiations? When you say initiation, okupitetanda, culturally, traditionally, a man ohapite tanda. Etandarashike opwakufe umbada, yopapwe onkondo, to be given the power of loving a mother or loving a daughter or in protecting a mother with a feminine, because even men have feminine, not only masculine. So whereby the girl is also going through Orufuko to be given that initiations to understand the man. What is the man? So in this, all this was our cultures and tradition that was taken away from us and said that paganism, but for somebody who came with a culture so that they can brainwash us to come away from our love. Like my brother said, in my culture, or traditionally, or being spiritual, we are spiritual beings, we are natural people. Already in our culture, our mothers, when I remember up to today, our mothers was having a feminine of giving respect to their men. Not to say they are bowing to men, respect, because those are our mother. They give birth to us, as my brother said, for 9 months. That was respect. Whereby today, our mother is changed to masculine, to love, not to respect. Well, love was for men to love and protect a woman. Meme oteasimane ke onsamane we. Manga onsamane taganya ohore eno hore yon krukadi noyana. So when it comes to today's cultures, you have given freedom from the independence of culture. A child have the right. Where do we come in as in our cultures?
So are you effectively saying that the modern cultures and modern religions that people have adopted are straying away from old values, which would in turn stray away from violence against genders?
Exactly. Because if you look at our colleagues, the white colleagues, people, they still discipline their children, whether you like it or not. You go in the store, in a pep store or somewhere, you'll find them disciplining that child. While you were taken away to discipline your child, you were taken away as a mother and a father to have a right of your own child because of democracy. For me, it's democracy. You live in a culture of crazy people. You see, we are living here as Namibia, and say, in which perspective are we talking? We live in a culture of democracy, whereby it gives a woman that is a moon a power to become masculine. It's, even our mothers, they are fighting with men to men. It's not like that in our culture.
I want to bring in Pastor Beukes here because there have been conversations flying around, Pastor Beukes, that in actual fact, some traditional values, some religious values are actually the cause of these issues and the violence that we've seen amongst genders, especially when you look at the feminine and the masculine role. How would you respond to that, and how would you put that into perspective that in actual fact it perhaps doesn't cause the violence that people are accusing religion of doing?
I think maybe sometimes it depends on how people read scriptures. Because I can just give you an example in the context of marriage. You see, in the scripture in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 21, the scripture is saying, submit to one another out of reference to Christ. You know, that's a mutual submission of people of equal value in the sight of God. And then as you read the scripture further, I start with husband to love as Christ loved the church. So I always hear people say some of the Christian values may be causing some of these kind of things. But looking from how Scripture is stating a relationship, even to your enemy, it says love your enemy. That's why I think we need to go back and look to what is happening, and what is happening in our in our society is reflecting what is happening in our homes. I mean, if we grow up in a house where the way of communication was through violence, because, you know, violence has many forms, how you are raised up. You know, when you know the way to communicate, if something is not pleasing, it's just beating. And even in that kind of a way, and you grow up with that kind of a mindset, it starts to become your way of communication. And secondly, you know, the other issue I was wondering, you know, looking to how things happen in our culture. If you go to church, the majority of people are female. If you go to some of these trainings and things, you find a lot of ladies going and attend and learn. And when it comes to the male counterparts, it's very few who attend some of these trainings. I mean, whether it is parenting, whether it is issues affecting home, and you find them in other setups. So I think we need to really go deep and start to look to what is underlying causes, because we have such a lot of programs in this country, from government to NGOs, addressing the issues of gender-based violence, but it seems like it's just increasing.
Do the churches have programs in that regard?
The churches have programs in that regard. Firstly, I must say, churches by nature of their message, they address those things. And secondly, there are specific programs which we have in churches, which is addressing issues of gender-based violence using scriptures. And this is some of the programs we also give training to our member churches, how to use specific scriptures and addressing specific issues like issues of gender-based violence.
Dr. Shikongo, I'll bring you in here. I see you've been making a few notes there. Just your response to that question that I asked Pastor Beukes, but I guess also your response to Mr. Shikongeni in what he had to say. But to start off with that question to Pastor Beukes, that notion that indeed it's because of religion, it's because of these values that sometimes don't respect the role of women that are leading to issues of gender-based violence.
Well, what I always appreciate when we want to seriously resolve issues, we have to apply a more just approach to anything that we are discussing. The moment you sort of become selective, you just selectively want to look at that point and that point, then you miss the whole picture as far as I'm concerned. So for me, as I'm saying from the very beginning, I don't want us to have a reductionistic conversation where we reduce issues either to gender or to religion or to culture. No, these things are complicated. And that is why for us to even find solutions, we'll find them in a multidimensional way. So, for example, to say cause, obviously as an academic, we always look at what are the contributing factors. We don't just say cause, because sometimes you find that there's no real one cause to the other. It doesn't mean that if you are a male, automatically you will abuse women. That's why, as I'm saying, even the issue of gender-based violence sometimes is problematic, because in fact, in some cases, we tend to even think it's only men who actually abuse women. But, I mean, if you become gender neutral, you realize that it can come both ways. So what I want to say in terms of responding directly to your question, whether religion is at fault, not is as simple as that. Yes, there could be certain religious practices or beliefs that would make it easier for men to abuse women if we talk about it from that one-dimensional sort of perspective. But equally, you find there are other teachings that are countering that. Now, if you want to blame religion, what are you going to do with that teaching which is good? Meaning that you have to have an even more contextualized view. Some of these things are also as a result of modernity, just as a natural evolution of human culture, that there are certain things that get complicated because of just how we are living today. So it's very important that we also don't take so much of a romantic view of culture also, because sometimes we tend to look at our cultures as if everything was always beautiful and things were disrupted and nothing was good. So I think that view, what we need to do, we need to synthesize and say, okay, this issue from our culture is good. Let's take it away with. Let's take it let's take it with forward. And then this one from modern culture, it's not a good thing. So it should be a wise approach to solving a problem, because once you have a more sophisticated kind of analysis of the problem, you'll be able to resolve it from different angles. Because I can assure you, especially as faith communities, they have a lot of power in terms of influencing people. If they also preach the right messages, definitely people will also listen and apply. If they preach wrong messages or they misinterpret, it will definitely be, again, resulting in negative result. So it's about us understanding also contextually what would have happened there between these two individuals. Because sometimes, as I said, there are issues of substance abuse. It's not even an issue for male and female. It could be some other factors that are actually causing that, or that are contributing to that. So that is the conversation that I want us to have, a more nuanced type of understanding of problems as human beings. You see, sometimes we want to racialize these things sometimes, and you find that in every culture, you find that there are problems.
And indeed,
see?
but you
Yeah.
do understand the importance of these religious institutions,
Of
these
course,
cultural
of course,
institutions,
definitely.
and how they influence behavior.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying that if we utilize them for the good, 100% they'll produce good.
Are they being utilized for the good? In
It's
the
a mixed
current
bag.
Namibian context?
It's a mixed bag, but definitely they can be utilized for good.
What are your thoughts on that, Mr.
Definitely. Because they are very powerful institutions.
You see,
So, yeah.
sorry, Tatiku.
Yes.
I don't want anybody to get me wrong. It's not that to say religion have brought wrong things to our culture. No. What I'm trying to say is here, if we can look at what we were found with as African, I'm also with him. I don't want to talk about religion. That's why I asked at the beginning, is it from the perspective of colonization when we talk about gender? Because in my way of living, Omambo, you know where that word comes from first? Because I grew up in that time, generation. Omambo was seen as the church. Atuiko Mambo. We are going to the knowledge, to the book, not to the building. Atuiko Mambo. What did that Omambo teach me in that time? It taught me discipline. That's why I say, after independence, we created a democracy that have changed my culture to not me to have right to my own daughter. You get me, why is it? The right, my brother is talking the truth. Substance of drugs, I have also substance of freedom. Whereby you give freedom to my child today, that my child comes to me and tell me, Daddy, I'm going out now from your house, and I'm going to make my house and stay with another girl in that house. It's a democratic right. But within my culture, it's already against me as a father, being told that when I said initiation, there was a culture where I know that if my boy or my girl comes out of my house, it's when that boy is ready okukatura erugo to go and put up a kitchen for that madam. And knowing the rules, I will make you a joke one. One says yanje omuramanje. Why do you know that 90% or 85% whose gender violence is my tribe, Ambo people? Awambo, whether you like it or not. They are the ones. Go and check. I've been looking at it. So when you look at the Herero cultures, where they have one sezanje is omuramwanje, they are already told in the culture, omuramwanje, when you have that, family is your family. You don't do any harm. You have respect. The wealth belongs to us. Whereby our children as Ambo people are given a hard time to live already precious. Young men, if we want to speak like my brother said, we must speak to the core. Young men of my tribe, of Ambo people, sorry to select, are in the pressure because they are the one that I'm given that they have to provide, they have to marry. We are the people who force our children to get married quickly. You understand? So, and there's that right that where our children are given, monare, antu, ngere oa mitike, waganje punda. Like you are saying that we must choose which ones was right. For me, that one was right. Ohamukumbwa, we osichashazimu oshikumbu. Okukumbwa po. So it was to discipline. It was not to kill. It's to discipline and show you that if you get pregnant earlier or have a boyfriend or girlfriend earlier, it's wrong. And now it's killing by allowing them to have it. You see? So in that way also is where I think about that the core value of our norms, value as who we are, denial that we have created in ourselves. I always say that, is white people not people like us? Are they not human? Are they not spiritual? Why they don't have that gender violence? Why they don't have that? They just have the culture that we used to have, discipline. They give you laws, but they don't apply to them.
So what core values, what core norms can we take away that will end this violence that we've seen, this evil that we've seen?
Me, I just want my culture to come back for me to be able to love my children. To love my children. Because we don't love each other, me and you are my child, and you know it in today's generation society. I want to love my children. I used to tell people that if my culture is there for my child to know that I need to respect them, despite of education, despite of our democracy, despite of politics that we inherited. And know that if I need to go out of this house, like he said, they use drinks now, alcohol and drugs. Children will come with a bottle of wine. I did not do it in front of my parents. Is that not the culture? Was I not disciplined? I was disciplined. Through what? Omambo, the church, through what? My culture, tradition, it was allowed. So teachers were not teachers. Ne? They were mothers. Today you call them teachers.
What do you think are the major contributing factors to this problem right now? I mean,
it's freedom.
We've taken a few.
It's freedom.
Of them.
I told you last time.
Do you think freedom
is weakness?
You think freedom is a major cause of gender-based violence?
You see, because why I say that is that I always say freedom is wicked. You fight for freedom, but you can't do it. You can't do it with it today. You don't know what to do with it. You see, you give my child freedom to go and live with that girl and go and kill my child. To give you the right thing is that if our mothers can come back to their femininity, to come back and give that love that I have lost when I was in war, when I was in the mine, when I was in the farm. Because independence, I thought when independence came for my country, I thought the mothers will now embrace the men. Do you know that they were gone long time ago? We have a trauma. If you don't know, we have a trauma. They were gone for a long. There were some in war, some in mine, some working in the farms. So what did they do? They came with the Western inheritance, alien culture to give human rights. You understand? That women, what they did? Then they said now they give our mothers to become. Mothers today are hatred of their own sons. Do you see what they do? They give birth. They are the moon, the light. It's not the sun. The sun is the man. It hits you. It's warm. So they've taken that motherhood from our mother to love us and embrace us as we are their sons. Now we are making, like my brother saying, you have put in a gender. Gender was not in my culture when I grew up. I only know that Nyanga, I go and sit there. But our mother was taking care of me as a son and give that values and norms of being a son. So our mothers must come back to their feminine. They fear their femininity because they have love and respect. You get what I'm trying to say? They become masculine. When it's masculine, they fight.
I want to bring Pastor Beukes in here, and this is as we start winding down our conversation, and perhaps to take in the points of the other two speakers as well, and just to apply them to this particular conversation as we move forward, especially on a national level, in connection with these particular institutions that I'm talking about. What solutions do we put on the table? I remember 10 years back, if not more than 10 years, maybe 15 years back, President Hifikepunye Pohamba then called for National Prayer Week or Prayer Month, prayer period, excuse me. And then a few years later, then former First Lady, now former First Lady Monica Gengos, interrogates the causes of gender-based violence through various platforms. It seems like nothing's happening now on a national level in relation to these institutions. How do you think we move forward with that?
I think, this is a multidimensional issue. That's why, when I listen to what the values and the norms we so teach and bring forth, like the children's rights, the overemphasis of rights versus norms and values in this country. I think somewhere we have gone wrong. I mean, we are discussing issues of life skill programs with Ministry of Education. The norms and values which is put in life skill programs is totally something different. Of course, we know that we are not in isolation. We are part of a global world through internet and these social media. We have all kinds of influences. But our national message we give to the nation is not about hard work. It's not about honesty. It's about rights. And I think this is where terribly we mess in this country. That's why we need to go back to the basics of issues of respecting one another, the issues of hard work, the issue of honesty. those kind of basic values and norms need to be integrated in national programs, starting from educational programs, the life skill programs given for our children there. Now, when you look to what is happening now, it's sort of conflicting messages. At the church, you hear this. At the school, you hear this. And this person one day has to grow up in this whole confusing messages. And that makes us, when a nation lost its own identity, then there is a social chaos. Because it is your identity which makes you to know that what is allowed, what is not allowed. How do I greet a person? That time a stranger, if he's senior than you, you have to respect it. You don't need to know who is that person. So my plea or view is that all our programs must start to go back to basic norms and values of humanity and start to, because we are too overemphasizing, as I say, issues of human rights. Look just on the Children's Day. Look just, when I was there at the office of the Ombudsman, they have a children's advocate or something, and the emphasis when I listen to it's about the right of that child. And wherever this child is about the right, not bringing in basic norms, basic values, honesty, that you grow up with those things, respect, that you grow up with those things. So I think as a nation, with national programs, with religion, with traditional leaders or whoever, if we say in this dynamic, evolving society we are living in, how do we bring back these things? And that can be one of the areas of starting, because we know in this country, as someone mentioned, I did a nationwide study. People drink to get drunk. And I think one of the presidents say he don't want to be a president of a drunkard nation. So values in terms of those basic things is basically losing, and there is no one to give upcoming generation direction, because person feels it's my right, I'm over 18, you have nothing to tell me. I'm afraid to discipline my child because my child has now a right to go and report me. And we know of people who happened. We know of pastors who were locked up because he disciplined the son who came late. The son went and make a case.
Pastor Beukes, sorry to cut you there, but just to make the best of our time, I'll give it over to Dr. Shikongeni, to Dr. Shikongo, rather, excuse me. I'm getting the feeling that you are saying we can't just solely put this in the hands of religion. We can't just put a gender-based violence problem in religious institutions, and it should be a multidimensional conversation, like you said.
Yes.
How multidimensional should the solutions themselves be as well? To Dr. Shikongo.
We have all these kind of...
Pastor Beukes, that question is directed to Dr. Shikongo.
Okay.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Well, I think we have kind of highlighted a few challenges here, and of course the solutions that I think are being proposed. Some are implicit also in the analysis, whether from a cultural, traditional perspective. Definitely there's a lot there that can be gained and recovered, especially in the post-colonial situation, because we also have to acknowledge, truly speaking, that colonialism has done a lot of damage in some cases in terms of degrading our cultural norms and values, and some of these things have been sort of thrown out, and then now we are realizing that actually we need to recover them. And I think those are issues that we need to critically look at and say, okay, going forward, what moral values and principles can we recover from our culture, or can we borrow from our cultures, indigenous cultures, that can help us to resolve this issue? And then, of course, we know that we are also living in a modernizing world. In fact, today, things are so difficult that even now the parents, they don't have control. The parent is now here in the hand, in the sense that the kids, they spend the whole time on social media, and that all kinds of influences come from there, to a point where even If you now want to control things either through education, through religion, through culture, it becomes a bit of a difficult one, because the parent now has become the machine, you see, and now you find that you lose control as well. And I think that is a challenge also that we are having, simply because of the modern nature of the society that we are living in, especially those of us who are in urban areas. Because we also know that if you look at sort of this thing we call gender-based violence, if you look at it, generally tends to be more prevalent in urban areas. Mm-hmm. We have to ask ourselves why. Because in the rural areas, generally, it's not really as that prevalent. And I think these are some of the things that we need to understand, because once we understand some of these dynamics, we can then say, okay, maybe we also need to bring this element here. Because when you do a comparative analysis, it allows you to also see what seems to be working there, what used to be working there. Papa Shikongeni here, he was making an example, a comparison between mainly the Ovambo culture and the Herald culture. There could be some things that could be learned from there. But we know that we are also a multicultural society. We are not a monolithic society, meaning that from whichever angle you will find something good that can be sort of synthesized and become a national solution. And this is why, as I said, I'm emphasizing the point that we should never reduce these problems to one single factor. It can be gender. There could be so many other factors. It could even be the ideology now, like the ideology of human rights, the narrative of human rights. Sometimes we uncritically sort of absorb it, and then we realize that we are not actually critically looking at some of these things. So that balance between rights, duties, morals, values, and ethics has to be brought together if we are to resolve the issue. And of course, that can come through education, through the policies that the government is doing, through the education that we also expose to our kids. But like I said, the modern challenge also that we have today is these tools that we have. It's both good and bad. And that loss of control, I think that is also one of the challenges, especially with parents today, where you find that it's almost you are teaching this and that it gets unraveled to the other side. So it's a complex way of resolving an issue, but definitely we know that we have the solutions. It's just a matter of application.
From your side, as we end this conversation, Papa Shikongeni, it's almost every day now, over the past week or so, that we've seen a case, right, from different towns of the country. So all of this is still busy happening while these discussions are happening, while there are discussions elsewhere that are happening. But practically, in the communities, on the ground, what do we tell people?
You see, there's good things that Mr. Beukes and my brother Shikongo here said. When I was listening to them, and then I see we are in a country for 34 years, but still we don't have an arts and cultural policy in a country. Arts and cultural policy that is amended in the parliament. Its draft is there. Already, as we speak of the urban areas, our traditional kings and chiefs were the people by the people. Antu, hale wakantu, uwa antu. I always speak that because I have seen that within my growth as a child, in the society we live today, in Vambolokasi. I live in Vambolokasi. I grew up in Okanja, but I live in this, but I go in Novamboland for my culture and value that I was being told by my grandfather, let him rest in peace. That my grandmother was also told me that I'm using when I'm talking to you, when I live with people, I go back to my grandmother's words. We don't teach, we are not taught. We are remembered. We remember. You see? When you remember, then you live a life. So what I want to say is that if that arts and culture policy is not implemented, already we have a problem. Because in education system, where my child is going, I was giving my brother an example. If you go to Japan, Korea, China, are they not living in this world today? They live in the same world. What do? They accepted what is working for them as Chinese and Japanese and Korean and Russians and Germans. Why do we always, African people, are the one who want to adapt? What is wrong with us? So, We want to tell the whole world that Africans had not a value of respect of gender. We have. So until our mentality change within our leadership to acknowledge and recognize that we, to be reality honestly, we are African people and we live with spirit. And I always say that even that cell phone that they're saying is a spirit. Alcohol is spirit, drug is spirit. It takes you, it's spirit. Mombepo can give you stress dimension, everything. Children today will tell you they are stressed. I knew to know stress of my grandmother and my mother. But today you will tell your children are stressed for what? It's because we live, whether we like it or not, in an alien culture that we as Namibian elders as we are here, going to be blamed by the Spirit of the Almighty, by the Nature Mother, that we allowed the culture that comes and conquers and destroys our own children, we as Namibians. So it is for you also as medias have to do, as you are asking the institution of church, what they're doing, religion. Is the media also that have to change? In our old time, the media was the one changing our lifestyles by giving positive vibes and giving positive education to the generation to come. So what we have to be, bring back the corporal punishment. You understand? Not punishment because you do wrong, by discipline. In the time of the Boers, as you do you're going to be hanged. It's in Botswana, it's in China. It's not because they don't love their people, because when you love your people, you'll make a very good point to decide that if you kill, you die. No, people will not kill. In the past, we don't killed because they were afraid of that.
I'll need us to cut us there, unfortunately. We just run out of time. But, gentlemen, I do thank the three of you for making some time for us in studio today. It's a difficult conversation to grapple. Like you said, Dr. Shikongo, it's multidimensional. It really is. There are many ways of having this conversation, of tackling this conversation, but the problem still persists. The problem still is there. We still have cases that we have to read every single day in the papers, on the police reports of young ladies being killed, and sometimes even young men being killed as a result of gender-based violence and various other issues. How we stop it, well, is what we've been trying to unpack this afternoon, and maybe you will have the answer. You can definitely comment on our social media platform on what you think should be the solution to this. Are we looking at our institutions culturally, the family, the school, or are we looking at our national government to see how they can assist in this regard? Thank you so much for making some time for us. We'll definitely continue this conversation. We'll have it again tomorrow on the conversation on Breakfast in the Desert and various other platforms as well. I have stolen just a bit of Fanny's time, but I'm sure she's okay with it. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. From myself, John-Colin Namene, and everyone else in studio, it's cheers.
Informative.
It is now investigating the events that unfolded at Swakopmund Secondary School on Wednesday last week.
Accurate.
It's the job of now journalists and everyone to say, are the factors affecting meat cooperation, are they internal?
Entertaining.
Well, the Salibos Madam is just me. I don't know how to introduce myself.
Current.
Breaking news. As we know, the police and the city of Beukes private contractors are busy demolishing shacks.
Desert Radio, the Bold Boys.